Hello, I'm here with London Director of Parent Practice, Elaine Halligan. How are you?
Hello there.
Tell us, what's your story and why are you here?
So I am director of a business called the Parent Practice. We're an organisation that enables families to get the best out of their kids and get the best out of family life. I came into this work about 13 years ago, and I came actually in crisis. I have two children, Sam, who's now 21, and Izzy, who's now 18. And when Sam was 7, we were finding parenting incredibly challenging. He was a very intense, very sensitive, and very impulsive child, and actually he wasn't coping at all in school life. And so when it got to the age of 7 and he was excluded from his 3rd school, we just didn't know what to do as parents. I felt guilty, I felt ashamed, I felt such a complete failure. So I went out and I retrained as a behavioural management specialist in order to understand who this kid was. And as we started to explore more about his needs, we started to realise that all behaviour has a cause. And the cause of Sam's issues at school were that he had some learning difficulties. But by this time, he'd been labelled everything. And he became known as the alphabet kid because he was given every 3-letter abbreviation and diagnosis imaginable. So we were told, Mrs. Halligan, he has ADD, attention deficit disorder. He may have a bit of Asperger's, so he's on the autistic spectrum. And then finally, when we were told he has oppositional defiance disorder, which kind of means he's not cooperative, that was when I just had to give up my job in the city, retrain, and I just thought, we've got to help this little kid, and we've got to start building up his self-esteem. Met my business partner, Melissa Hood, who actually works out in Sydney with the Aboriginal community, and lo and behold, the Parent Practice was born. And we started just building up Sam's self-esteem and getting him to the point where he felt more successful, more able, where adults around him understood his learning needs, and we managed to get him back into a school environment. And 10 years on, if I tell you that he finished school as head boy, this is a child who was written off in society, and we managed to get him back on track. And that is the power of positive parenting, and that's what we do at the Parent Practice.
That's really so inspirational, so
Thank
amazing,
you.
and I'm sure a lot of parents can relate to this and can get help. So leading on to my next question, do you think, were you playing the leading role in parenting, or do you think mothers are still playing a leading role?
Oh, that's a really interesting question, isn't it? Because I think traditionally there has been a kind of family hierarchy where perhaps biologically men have been the kind of hunter-gatherers and main breadwinners, and perhaps the mother has played that nurturing role, which is very much stemmed in hormones, actually, progesterone and estrogen, ensure that you nurture your baby. So I think traditionally there is some biological influence that has made mum the main primary caregiver, but thank goodness that has changed. And dads play equally as an important role in family life now, and play a really important role. So I think, there are many more working parents, mothers. I think there are many more 2 working families, 2 working parents. Just this week, we see highlighted in the news shared parental leave. So there's no question about it that I think that traditional dynamic has absolutely shifted, and it's shifted for the better.
So for those mothers that are finding it difficult to get their partners involved in helping with children, so what advice could you give? What can they do? What tips do you have for them?
Oh gosh, it's so important to get dads involved, isn't it? I think my first top tip is acknowledge them for what they do. We can often get into this habit of criticising. There's a fantastic marriage guidance counselling researcher called John Gottman. He's based in the States, and he talks a lot about a 5-to-1 ratio. And he says in order to keep a marriage off the rocks, you need to be saying 5 positives to every 1 negative. And actually, if you think about any relationship, it's really hard to be that positive. So top tip number 1 is just praise, descriptively praise your husbands, your partners for what they do get right. There is a little habit maybe for mothers to be a little over-controlling and to want things just perfect. Drop that perfectionism. Definitely schedule time with their kids. Children do not want presents. They don't want material gifts. The most important thing for a child is to have the presence of a mother or a father or a key significant adult. So absolutely get them involved. And I think with dads, with busy dads, it's important to schedule things in the diary. Another top tip is bring your kids along to mum and dad's workplace. So if dad is working, make it as a holiday day out, visiting dad in his workplace, engage with him and find out what he does.
Can you tell us why teamwork in parenting is so important? Because I'm sure so there's mothers and fathers out there that would love to understand the importance of teamwork in parenting. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
That's so interesting, isn't it? I have yet to meet a couple who agree on everything. They may have some shared values, but they rarely agree on all values. In order to get the best out of family life and to ensure our children are successful and happy, it is important to have a united front. So wherever possible, I encourage mums and dads to come together and really work out what their values are, what their rules are, and to help the kids be successful. So setting up a united front is probably one of the most important things you can do in order to parent positively. And I get lots of mums and dads coming to me and the mums say, I have spent the whole week setting up the screen time rule. Yeah, it's like I'm teaching the children how to play football. And then dad is coming in at the weekend and he's saying, forget football, we're playing American football. And so suddenly the rules change. And if the rules change, the children just don't know how to be successful. They don't know what the boundaries are. That leads to a bit of a power vacuum. So top tip is just mums, dads, sit down. Or if you're parenting alone, sit down with whoever else is helping with your kids and work out what your rules are, write them down and be explicit and explain it to the children.
Thank you very much, Elaine. Great tips. I'm sure a lot of viewers out there will benefit so much from it. It's back to you at the studio.